Hello, I am petroonishchuk. This video about SwiftUI and Firebase. I will be create a couple video, and through this whole video I want to create a single app for work with SwiftUI and Firebase. In Firebase I will work with Firebase Authentication and also with Firebase Firestore. In my video I also will be using Go language. And now I want to explain how we're going to create our app. For example, in first video we're going to create a simple application, and then with each video we will make some change in this application and add a new feature in this application. That means through all video we will work with the same application, but on the first video we will have a simple application, and then with each video we will add some feature and also make some change in our application, and on the end our application must be completed. How I said previously, from Firebase I will be using Firebase Authentication and also Firebase Firestore. Firebase Authentication gives us ability to authenticate our user, and also Firebase Firestore for hold data from our application. This is must be to do application. This means we must create a new user and then log in with a new user in our application, and then this user can make a to-do list in this application by using SwiftUI and also Firebase. With Firebase Authentication, we will create a new user, and then with Firebase Firestore, we will hold data about this user, and also Firebase Firestore must hold to-do list for each user in our application. And now I want to start a first video from my series of videos about SwiftUI and Firebase. We are going to create to-do app. And now first I want to create a new Xcode project, for example. And now we have our new Xcode project. Next, I want to create Firebase app for work with our application, for example. And now when you open Firebase Google.com page, move tab button Go to Console. And now when we tap button Go to Console, we have a list of applications what we create by using our Firebase. If you don't create any project yet, you will have a one button, Add New Project. And now I want to create a new project. To start a new project, we must tap button Add Project. First we must enter name for our project. As you can see, I tapped name to do app 01. You can read this information and then tap button Continue. Then select your Google developer account. And now wait a couple seconds when our project will be created. And now we created our project to do app 01. We'll work this project and with our SwiftUI application, what we create by using Xcode. On the button, how you can see, we'll be using Authentication and Cloud Firestore. How you can see, we have another feature what we can add to our application. Cloud Messaging for push notification and another feature. On the top, we have Get Started by adding Firebase to your app. By using this button, we can add Firebase to our application. That means we want to add Firebase to do app project to our SwiftUI application. How you can see, we can add to iOS application, Android, and web. We'll be using for adding to our iOS application. And now, for add our Firebase to our iOS application, we must tap this button. For add Firebase to our application, we must copy bundle ID from our application to this field. I am copy and paste our bundle ID from our iOS project. And also I don't fill this field. This field is optional. Next to field is optional, and I skip this field. Tap this button, Register App. Next step, download config file. We must download this file and put this file to our Xcode project. Tap Download this file. And now when I tap this button, that means I download this file. And now move to folder what holds this file. This is our file what we download for work with our iOS project. And now we must put this file to our Xcode project. How you can see, I move this file to our application. And now this file what we download for work with Firebase we put in our Xcode project. And now I move this file to our Xcode project. This file we need for work with our Firebase application. And now move to our Firebase project. After we download this file, tap Next button. Next information explains us how we add Firebase SDK to our Xcode project. We must add Firebase SDK to our Xcode project for work with Firebase. Later I show you how we can add our Firebase to Xcode project. I also will be using Firebase Packet Manager for add Firebase SDK to our Xcode project. Then tap Next button. Next information try to explain how we set up our Firebase in our SwiftUI project. Also we can add our Firebase Swift project and Objective-C. Tap Next button. Tap Continue to cancel. And now we have our to-do app 01 Firebase project. In this project we add our IaaS application. This is our IaaS application what we add to our Firebase project. And later we will add authentication and cloud firestore to our project. But now return to our SwiftUI project. Next step what we must do is add Firebase SDK to our Xcode project for work with Firebase in our application. For this I will be using Package Manager. We tap File, Add Packages. In Search field, tap Firebase. This is our Firebase iOS SDK. We must add this SDK to our application. Tap Add Package. Now we must wait some time and then we must resume set up Firebase SDK to our application. And now we must select what package product we want to install to our application. In first time I select Firebase Analytics and also Firebase Authentication. Then I will also add a new product to our application. But at first time I select only two products. Then tap Add Package. And now we must wait when our package will be installed. And now on the left side of Navigator panel we have our package dependency. That means we install our Firebase SDK to our application. Next I want to create application for work with Firebase Authentication. For this we must set up our SwiftUI project and also we must set up our Firebase project. First I'm going to set up our iOS project for work with Firebase Authentication and then I'm going to set up our Firebase project for work with Authentication. Let's start with our iOS project. Next step is initialize Firebase in our application. That means we must add initialize code to our application. For this work I show two ways how we can initialize Firebase in our application. In first way, we must create app delegate file. For example, this is first way how we can initialize Firebase in our application. In first way, we initialize through app delegate. Next, inside this file, we create class app delegate. Inside this class, we implement function did finish launching with option. And through this function, we initialize our Firebase in our application. That means with this function, we initialize Firebase in our application after our application did finish launch. And then we must attach our app delegate to our application. We attach our app delegate to our application through UI application delegate adapter. This means when our application finishes launching, we're going to run this code, Firebase configure. That means we want to initialize Firebase in our application. And now I try to show you a second variant how we can initialize Firebase in our application through extension, for example. And on the second way, we initialize Firebase in our application through extension. How you see, we create extension to our app structure. We create extension for this structure. And then we run the same function what we run in our app delegate, Firebase.config. And then inside this app structure, through initializer, we run this function. This means when our structure want to initialize, we must run this function. Setup Firebase. That means we will run this function, Firebase.config. But we can initialize our Firebase two times. That means we must commit some variables. I commit second variable. And now we will be initialize our Firebase through app delegate. Next, I want to create a ViewModel for our application. Our ViewModel must hold method for work with Firebase. For example, this is our MyAppViewModel file. Inside the file, we have our MyAppViewModel class. And also, I import SwiftUI and Firebase Authentication for work inside our ViewModel. We have our class MyAppViewModel. Inside the class, we have a couple properties. First property for check if our user signed in. Next property is path. I create the property for work with NavigationStack. In this application, we will work with NavigationStack. And also, we have a property for work with Firebase Authentication. Then we have a couple methods. First method is check if our user is signed in. How you can see, inside this method, we take our authentication from our Firebase and check if our authentication have current user. That means if our authentication.currentUser return nil, that means our user don't sign in. If our authentication.currentUser not nil, that means our user signed in. And our result variables will be held as true if our user signed in. And at the end, we assign this value to our property, user signed in. Next, in this video, we'll be using this property for replace screen in our application when our user sign in or our user don't sign in. Move to the next method. Next method is back to root screen. With this method, we'll be back to our root screen. We take our path and tap in it. That means when we move to second screen or third screen in our application and we run this method, that means we'll be back to our root screen. Because this path we will be using in our NavigationStack. If we're using our path.init, that means we return to our first screen, our root screen. Later I show you our root screen. Move to the next method. Next method, SignUp. With this method, we can create a new user in our application. As you can see, this method takes two parameters, email and password. Then we'll be using this email and password when we want to create a new user. Then we use our authentication property from our Firebase authentication and try to create a new user. We put our email and password. Authentication.createUser have completion holder clauses. This means these clauses will be run after we try to create a new user. And after we try to create a new user, these clauses return a two value, result and error. And we check if our error is nil, it's okay. But if our error is not nil, this means we have an error when we want to create a new user. We check this error and print this error. When our error is nil, we move to the next step. We check our email. This means we successfully create our user, but I want also check if our result.user.email holds this email. This value must be value what we put in our parameter. We take this parameter, put to our method authentication.createUser, and then if all successful, our result must hold this value. And on the end, we check this value. If we don't have this value, we print an error. If all successful, we move to the next step. We print that we successfully sign in with email and print this email. And on the end, we back to the root screen. As you can see, we run this method for back to the root screen. Because when we create a new user, that means we create a new user and sign in with new email and password to our application. That means we must return to the root screen and start to work with our application like new user. Next method, SignIn. With this method, we'll be sign in our application when we already create our user. For example, we previously create a new user when we sign up in our application. That means we already have our email and password in our Firebase application. And then we take our email and password what we put in our application and check if our Firebase authentication have this user. If our Firebase authentication have this email and this password, we take our authentication, sign in and put our email and password. And we check. And how in previously example, our authentication sign in have completion clauses. These clauses run after we try to sign in our application with this email and with this password. We return to value, result and error. If our error is nil, it's okay. If our error is not nil, we print this error. If our error is nil, we move to the next step. We check our result. That means our result must hold email what we put in our method when we try to sign in our application. And also when we have this result, that means all okay. And on the end, we print sign in with email. This means we already have user in our application with this email and this password, and we successful sign in our application. And on the end, we print sign in with email and print our email. When we print this email, this means we successful sign in our application. And next, we print sign in with email. That means we successful sign in with this email in our application. Next, we run a two method. First method is user sign in. With this method, we check if we sign in our application. And on the end, we back to our root. We run our method back to root screen. And also, we must run this method in our method when we try sign up in our application. Self.user sign in. Self.isUser sign in. We also must check if we sign in our application. Because when we create a new user, we automatically, after we create a new user, sign in our application. We check if we sign in our application, and after we check if we sign in our application, we back to our root screen. That means our screen must display view with user data, what holds our Firebase Doc. On the end of this video, after I create this application, I also will be explain our ViewModel and all methods inside our ViewModel and how this method work in our application. That means I will be repeat again how work this method in our application. At the end of this video, after I create this application, I'm going to explain again how work all methods in our application. Because now I explain first time, but after I explain first time, now I must create a view in our application, and also I must set up our Firebase application. And then after all set up, I can explain how all it works in our application. Next, I want to create couple views in my application. First, I want to create root content view and also selected content view. And now we have two new views. First view, root content view. This is our root content view. Then I will delete our content view and set this is root content view for our main view. Inside our root content view, we have navigation stack, and inside navigation stack, we have our selected content view. And also, how you can see, we have navigation destination. Later, when I will create navigation link, I explain value what I put in our navigation destination. Move to our selected content view. Our selected content view check if our user is signed in. If our user is signed in, we display view user's view. If our user not signed in, we display view MainLogin view for make our sign in or sign up. Next view what I want to create is user's view. And now I create this view and show you how look this view. After this view, I'm going to create our MainLogin view with SignIn view and also with SignUp view. Let's start with our user's view. And now we have a new view, user view. As you can see, I put this view in our selected content. We will display this view when our user successful sign in our application. Let's move to this view. As you can see, this is a simple view, and this view will display text login success. This means we successful sign in our application. In this video, we have simple user view. But on the next video, I'm going to update this view because this view will display data what we hold in our Firebase firestore. But in this video, I create a simple view. Next, I'm going to upgrade this view, but not in this video. Okay, we create view what we display when we successful sign in our application. And now I want to create a view what I will display when I want to sign in to our application or I want to create a new user and sign up in our application. For this, I must create a couple views. First view is MainLogin view and then sign in view and sign up view. I start with MainLogin view and then I'm going to create another view. For example, And now we have a new couple view. First is our MainLogin view. Inside our MainLogin view, we have a two navigation link. Our navigation link takes two parameters. First parameter is label, second parameter is value. Our navigation link must present view corresponding to this value. First value is SignIn. That means this navigation link must present view corresponding to value SignIn. Or, through another word, this navigation link must present our SignIn view. Second navigation link must present our SignUP view. But where we can find our view that corresponds to this value? We put this view in our navigation destination. In our RootContent view, we have our navigation destination. We have our NavigationStack and we write our navigation destination. And then our NavigationStack takes our value what we put through our navigation link. And we check our value. We can take two values, SignIn and SignUp. And also, because I use switch and switch must be exhaustive, on the end I use a default case for display a default view, text default view. And then, for example, when we tap to another link with another value and we don't write this value in our switch case, that means we must display our default view. Okay, this is our MainLogin view. And now move to our SignIn view and SignUp view. Move to our SignIn view. This is our SignIn view. We'll be using this view when we already create our user in our Firebase application. Our SignIn view have a two state property, email and password. We'll be using this property for field email and password in our application. And also we have a property from our environment object to hold our My ViewModel object. Inside our view we have a list and couple sections. First section for text field, first text field for email, and second text field for password, secure field. As you can see, we put in our text field for email our state property email. And also I set up text field by using text input auto-capitalization. Tab never. That means our email never be start from capital letter by default. And also I using the same setup to our password. That means by default our password don't be start from capital letter. And also I using the tab auto correction disable. That means our application don't be autocorrect our password. Next section is button section. Inside our button section, we have two buttons. First button for sign in with our email and password. As you can see, we use our ViewModel, tap sign in and put email what we tap in our text field and using password what we tap in our secure field. And also we have another button for clean our email and password for cancel. This is our My ViewModel. This is our method for sign in our application. This is our method. I explained this method previously. We use this method by using our Firebase application for sign in to our application. Okay, next move to another view. This is our SignUp view. We'll be using this view when we want to create a new user in our application. This view very similar. We have our environment object what called our My ViewModel. We have a two property for email and password. We have a list with two sections, text field section and button section. Inside our text field, we also have text field for email and also we have secure field for password. We set up our text field and secure field with text input auto-capitalization, tab never and auto-correction disable. Next section is button section. Inside our button section, we have two buttons. First button for make our sign up to our application. As you can see, we're using our My ViewModel that sign up using email and password. And also we have a button for clean our email and password. Button cancel. This method we have in our My ViewModel. Let's move to this method. This is our method inside our My ViewModel. With this method, by using our Firebase Authentication, we try to create a new user. I explained this method previously. With this method, we try to create a new user and we check an error. If we have an error, we print an error. If we don't have an error, we print that we have a new user. And we run our method self-is-user sign in for check if we sign in our application, and also we back to our root screen. And now I want to explain another changes what I make in this application. As I said previously, I'm using My ViewModel in our environment object. But where I put this My ViewModel object in our environment object? For this, I put our My ViewModel in our app structure. How you can see, in this app structure, we set up our app delegate, and also I set up our environment object. I create this object by using our My App ViewModel, and then I take this object and put like our environment object, and then I have ability to use it, My App ViewModel, in our view. I can use this view in our root view controller, selected view controller. I check if user sign in our application, inside UserView, inside SignIn, and also inside SignUP, because we use our My App ViewModel for run our SignIn method and also SignUp method. And also we can delete our content view, because for now we don't using this content view. For now our main view is our RootContent view. Okay, I think I create the simple application. And then I want to set up our Firebase application. I want to add Firebase Authentication option to our Firebase application. For this, we must move to our Firebase application. This is our Firebase project to do app 01. And this is application what we add to our project. As application. This is my application what we create previously. To add Firebase Authentication to our project, we must tap to this button. And also, how you can see, we have Cloud Firestore. Cloud Firestore will be using later, not in this video, but in the later video, for save data from our application, because we will save to-do list from our user inside our Cloud Firestore. But in this video, I only add Firebase Authentication to our to-do app project. For example, when we tap to this button, we can read some information for our Firebase Authentication. And now I tap Get Started. Now we can set up our Firebase Authentication. Both methods we can use it by using our Firebase Authentication. We can use email, password, phone, anonymous, and another method to sign in and sign up to our application. In this video, I only will be using email and password. But then on the future video, I also add sign in with Google, and also I add sign in with Apple. But in this video, I only add simply email and password. Later, we can add a new method to our Firebase project. Tap to this button. Select Enable, tap Save, and now we have this method in our application. We can use it our Firebase Authentication with our IS application. And after we create a new user in our application, and then foresee a new user was signed in our application, we can tap User in this page and see new user what we have in our application. What user signed in our application. And next, when we make sign up or create a new user in our application, we must see this user in this field in our Firebase project. And now I want to run our IS project and try to create a new user in our application, and we must see this user in our Firebase project. And also I forget to change our MainLogin view. Inside our SelectedContent view, using this placeholder, now I am changed to MainLogin view. Okay, and now we can run our simulator and testing our application and Firebase application. And now we run our application. This is our MainLogin view. Our SelectedContent view check if our user sign in. If our user don't sign in because we don't create any user yet, we display our MainLogin view. This is our MainLogin view with two links: to sign in when we have already created user, and we sign up when we want to create our new user. Because we don't create any new user yet, we must tap sign up for create a new user. We have a two fields for email and password. And now I try to create a new user. I tap in email and password and tap sign up, and we must create a new user. When we can create a new user and we have an error, we will print an error in output in our Xcode. As you can see, we print sign up with email, and this is my email. And also we have a screen login succeed. That means we successfully create our user. And now move to our Firebase project. This is our Firebase project. Authentication, users. And now, when we reload this page, we must display this user in our application. Now you can see, this is my email created, signed in December 24. This means we successfully create a new user. After we create a new user, we sign in with this That means we successfully create a new user. And now move to our simulator and try to sign out and sign in with this email to our application. Tap sign out. When we tap sign out, we sign out with our Firebase Authentication. And we now have our MainLogin view screen because for now we don't sign in any user in our application. And now we try to sign in with user what we created previously. I tap my email and password. And we successfully sign in our application. That means we successfully create our user and our application work correctly. For example, when we try to sign in with another email, what we don't use it in our application. For example, I use my email, but on the end, I add 01. Tap password and tap sign in. And how you can see, our Xcode project print an error. We print an error, that means we don't have this user in our application. That means we can't sign in our application, because we don't have user with this email in our application. When we change this email to my email, tap sign in, we successfully sign in to our application. When we successfully sign in our application, we run this method. For sign in our application, we run this method sign in by using authentication from Firebase. We try to sign in, and if all successful, we print sign in with email. How you can see, this is my email. And on the end, we check is user signed in. We run this method. How you can see, we check authentication current user. If our current user is nil, that means we don't sign in. If our user don't nil, that means we successfully sign in. That means our result hold value true if our user signed in. And after we check if our user signed in, we back to our root screen. Inside our root screen, we have our selected content view. Our selected content view check if our user signed in. In this example, we successfully signed in our application. That means we must display our user's view. And we successfully display our user's view. This is our user's view with login succeeded. This is the end of my first video. In this video, I try to create a simple app where using SwiftUI and Firebase. This app is not so perfect, and this app is so simple. And also, how I said previously, I want to create another video where I want to upgrade this app to add some feature for this app and also make this app more better. And also, I want to add sign in with Apple account and also sign in with Google account. And also, I want to add firestore to this application. But all update for this application and also all new feature for this application I don't add on the next video. I want to make all these changes on the next couple videos. This is the end of first video. A link related to this video I put below in description. Next video about SwiftUI and Firebase I try to create in short time. This is the end. Thank you for watching.